And okay, so we are learning. We're in the middle of slowly going through chapter Siman Pei in the Shulchan Aruch. Let's bring it up. And the Kitzur on the laws of Shabbos. Okay, so I believe could be we're holding a little. I'm gonna maybe go back one law. Okay, so here we're learning about the different things in Shabbos that are permissible or prohibited based on specifics on the laws of Shabbos, whether it's in cooking or other of the Lamites Melachos, the 39 laws. So we're talking about now peiros. Yeah, so we did 7. Peiros shenimtzu tachas ilon. If you find fruits and vegetables under the trees, or fresh fruits under the trees, asur nafilu betiltil, it's muksa, you can't even touch it, never mind eat it. Shema naflu hayoy, maybe it fell on the Saturday, on Shabbos, and then it wasn't ready to be eaten before. Hey Rebecca, I think we're going back to halacha ches. So perishinim tzutachas ilon, a fruit that you find under the tree are prohibited afilul betil to carry. Shem nafla yom, maybe they fell on the Saturday, which means they weren't picked yet, or they didn't fall off until later, and until Shabbos, and then it wasn't ready to eat until it was picked, until it fell off the tree. So therefore, it's muksa. V'chein kol perish eitzel in Yehudi. So to any, if, however, what way that would be, but if you came into contact with fruits and vegetables from a non-Jew on the Shabbos, whether it is in his house, you're borrowing, or from the store, etc. If you could be, if you're doubtful, right? He has his own backyard, or she has her own backyard of a orchard or a field. Or so asur afilu betiltol, you shouldn't even touch it because again it's muksa. Ulinin chash chutz latchum ayin lekaman simin tzadikei sif Yud Zayin. So they're talking about the question of not that so much so that he picked it, but maybe it was picked before he or she picked it, but maybe it was farmer's market and they brought it in from an area outside of the permissible place of Shabbos, and then it would be another question altogether. Okay, so he says, just the footnotes on this is, I think, and we did this laws last week, so he says 32 is for may have fallen on that very day, meaning in 32 he says, a suffix doubt is also prohibited. The Pri Megadim says, even if you don't know if let's say you have a tree, an apple tree, or any kind of fruit tree, and you're not sure if it fell Friday or before Saturday or on the Saturday, so also then you should not touch it. It's prohibited for 2 reasons. One is muktzah, which we learned about in chapter 88. Meaning muktzah means it's not been oh, good. So Howard's telling me, thank you, Howard, is letting me know that the YouTube is working fine. So number 1 is it's muktzah. It wasn't ready for use before Shabbos, and anything that's not ready for use before Shabbos or Yom Tov for that matter cannot be used if it becomes ready on the Shabbos or Yom Tov. We have a whole tractate in the Mishnah and the Talmud, Beitza Shenol de Yom Tov, if an egg was hatched on the holiday, so it wasn't there before. It only comes afterwards. If it's ready to be, if you could eat that egg on the holiday itself, you might. And so then, and the second concern is you might come to pick them from the tree. And the next concern is that if you're going to touch the fruits that are on the tree that have fallen from the tree, the day before on the Shabbos, so that may lead to a person making the mistake of picking further and picking more apples. So then it's not so much a concern that it fell on the Shabbos, but if you're going to take the apples from underneath the tree, maybe you're going to take the apples from the tree. Yes, Aaron.
What if they'll go rotten if you don't
Sorry?
pick them up? They fell, whatever you say, how they fell. But now it's Shabbos, so they'll go rotten if you don't pick them up before.
I understand. I understand your concern, but that's not going to make it permissible to pick it up on Shabbos.
So then you just have to let it go?
You have to let it go. It doesn't say that there's no provision over here that says that if you feel that it's going to go rotten, you can pick it up. So there's no allowance over here.
Okay,
Again,
so what about rodents coming?
August, I guess we did learn this law last week because we spoke the same questions.
Kind of.
Again, the same thing. The rodents, you have other ways to deal with rodents, whether it's before Shabbos or the ways permissible on Shabbos, but to pick up the fruits because you don't want the rats or mice to come or what have you. That's it's not going to be permissible in this case on Shabbos.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, now we have the next question. The question is about honey. So, aser lir dois devash hamechuber bekaveres. It's forbidden to remove honey from the beehive on the Shabbos itself. V'chein aser l'rasik chalis devash, and let's say you have the honeycombs, but the honey's in the honeycombs, and ready you have the. So here, so you have two cases. One is the honey that's in the hive, and then you have the honeycomb that the honey's in the honeycomb. What does it could be? You've already removed the comb itself from the honeycombs itself from the hive, but it's the honey, haven't taken the honey out of the honeycomb. So here, v'chein also the rasik chalis devash. Also, you can't. The chalis devash means the honeycomb. You can't take. You can't crush it to get the honey out. Even if you took the honeycomb out of the hive on Friday, so it's not muksa, you prepared it, but to crush the honeycomb, to take the honey out on the Shabbos is not permitted. What happens if you didn't take the honeycomb out from before Shabbos? And now you have the honeycomb outside of the beehive where it's disconnected, seemingly, because otherwise we already said you can't take the honey from the hive itself. So, but let's say you don't have to crush the honeycomb to get the honey, but the honeycomb is actually oozing out honey. So maybe you could touch it. You're not actually doing anything to the honeycomb itself. It's still prohibited because it was taken out on the Shabbos. So, but if you taken out the honeycomb before Shabbos, and you're not crushing the honeycomb, it's just stripping out dvash, honey, it's permitted. Now, again, today, this is not something that's just for once upon a time. There's many people that still till today have honey in the honeycombs. There's a restaurant actually in Shukmach and Yehuda that one of their shtick is they have a big honeycomb hanging, and when you want honey for your dish, they're merasik it, they crush it to take honey out for your need. Yes, Aaron.
On Havdalah, could you use the comb and just stick a wick in it and light it? 2 wicks? Or is that forbidden?
You mean to use it as a candle?
Yeah.
After the Shabbos?
No, the only 2 times you'd use is before Shabbos to light for Shabbos, so that would be before. So that would be permissible. But we're asking on at the end of Shabbos when you do Havdalah, you need a Havdalah candle, but you have this chunk of honey that you didn't use. So now you want to turn it into a candle by just sticking 2 wicks in it and lighting it.
I don't see that should be a problem.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so footnote number 34. You can't remove honey from the beehive. 34. So see Meseches Shavias. It's in the Talmud, the Mishnah, chapter 10, Mishnah Zayin, I'm assuming. The sages hold that the act is not prohibited by biblical law, but rabbinically imposed to take honey out of a beehive on the Shabbos. It's not Isser Midraisa, it's Midrabanan. Rambam in Shabbos, the laws of Shabbos 21, law 6, means chapter 21, law 6, and the Shulchan Aruch in Siman 321, Shin Chaf Aleph, Sif, law 13, agree with, so to say, the discussion in the Mishnah that it's not biblical but rabbinic. The Chachamim maintain that a beehive has the status of something that is attached to the ground, and therefore is forbidden to detach it on the Shabbos. So the beehive is like a tree, and therefore you can't take the honey out of the beehive on Shabbos. And the concern is going to be that if you're gonna take the honey out of the beehive, you may disconnect the beehive, which is like picking something off a tree. Law number 35, footnote number 35 says that if the honeycomb has not been crushed before Shabbos, the honey that flows from it on Shabbos is forbidden. So he says, if you crush the honeycomb before Shabbos, you may use the honey that flows from it, from the comb on Shabbos, even though it is still connected to the hive. So here, actually, not like what I said. He's saying that I mean, so seemingly to take honey from the beehive itself, I'm assuming that the way it is, I guess if there's no honeycomb, so then it's prohibited. But if you have, I mean, it seems a little bit contradicting to the first law. If it's connected, if it's still connected to the hive, maybe it's oozing out without you touching the hive. 36 says crushing before Shabbos must be thorough. Otherwise, you may not use the honeycomb on Shabbos. You can't just crush a little bit. You have to crush it properly. Lest you come to further crush the comb, and because if it's not crushed properly, then you may end up continuing to crush it if it's not crushed properly. Again, like I said, and if you go to the Shuk Machane Yehuda, they have a large honeycomb and they just kind of crush it as you need the honey. So that's not enough. You have to actually crush the whole honeycomb so you could just take the honey out. But seemingly from the text of the law, the way I understood it was that the prohibition that we said then it's rabbinic to take the honey out of the kaveres is the hive. Then you can't take the second law is you can't crush the honeycomb, which seemingly has been taken out of the hive, even though it was disconnected, of course, on Friday. Number 3 law is if you haven't taken it out of the honey of the hive before Shabbos, so even if it flows, the honey that flows from it is prohibited. So he said, so in footnote number 35, he added to that if you crushed it and it's still in the hive, I guess, and then it flows out of the hive. So you're not taking it out of the hive itself. It flows out of the hive, however that would be. So then it's permitted. And then he adds, again, that it has to be totally crushed in order for you to take the honey out of the kaveres, out of the honeycomb, as opposed to just crushing it a bit. Okay, I'm just thinking that this law over here that he says that it's even though it's in the honeycomb, I'm not sure if that means it's in the honeycomb now, and then it just flows out of the hive, or if it's been taken out some way or another on the Shabbos. Yes.
Okay, if you buy honeycomb from a store, so it's how is it permissible to use the honey, and if it has to be crushed, what is the proper crushing? How much before you crushed enough?
He says, well, yes, you can use it only if you crush it before Shabbos, if you buy the honeycomb as complete, in such a way that basically the way to prevent the concern is if you crush it enough that it can't be further crushed. Means if you just crush again, honeycombs, I've seen them, they come in like these big sheets. They almost look like sheets. Like you have different kind of hives, obviously, right? You have man-made hives and you have bee-made hives. So in the man-made hives, kind of they create a system, if I understand it correctly, for the bees to properly go into these man-made hives that they build the honeycombs in, and they put the honey in there. So those ones that like look like sheets. So if you like kind of cut scrape down the sheet as you need the honey, it comes out more and more. It seems like the concern is that if you don't crush it properly, then you're going to end up crushing on Shabbos. So if you're asking how much you need to crush, you have to crush it enough that it's not possible for you to crush it on Shabbos. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Okay. And again, it seems like I'm not familiar with this personally, but it seems like one could buy honeycombs as something you would have in your own house and eat it that way. Okay. Law number 10. If the fruits spread out and they weren't meant to be eaten on Shabbos, but they got kind of go all over the place, like that could happen. Can you gather them together on Shabbos? It says it's permitted. But what happens if they spread and they really go kind of in a way it takes effort? These are all things that are not Shabbos. Things you shouldn't do on Shabbos. So if it kind of really spreads out that it has tircha, it has effort, tremendous effort to gather them together. So then you can't gather them in such a way and put them into the sal. Sal is the fruit basket, but you could pick up one and eat it. But to gather them into the fruit basket, if it requires more effort than just putting it together quickly, so that's prohibited on Shabbos. And let's see the footnotes why. So you may gather them if they're spread out, even into the basket. See Shulchan Aruch 335, Law 5, 38. He says, okay, now he explains why. Why, if there's effort to put it together, you're not allowed to put it in the basket. You could just pick it up and eat it. He says, because this is considered uvda dechal. Okay, so it doesn't fall under one of the specifics of the 39 prohibitions, but there's a concept of uvdin dechal. Uvda dechal means the way you do things in the week. It means there's certain things that are called normal, and there's certain things called uvda dechal. So he says uvda dechal implies any weekday type of activity, but it's not. I mean, setting the table is a weekday activity also, and making a salad is a weekday activity. We're talking about something. Uvda dechal means it's weekly. It's something that's not proper for Shabbos. Whether it is doing too much effort, or whether it is something that a person doesn't do on a free day, because that's something you do on a working day. And the day that you take off, you wouldn't do it. So to put in the effort to gather the fruits and put it in the basket, that's considered uvdin l'chol. Again, it's not a prohibition like the 39 prohibitions, but something you shouldn't do on the Shabbos. These are rabbinical prohibitions. The Rambam, in an Igros letter, lists three types of udin l'chol. So here the Rambam quotes, what's the definition of weekly activity? Number one would be activities that resemble a milach of Shabbos. One is that it's not a prohibition, but it's kind of looks like you're doing a malacha, a work on Shabbos. Another type is one that may lead to an act of desecration of the Shabbos. One, it itself is not it's not a malacha, but it could lead to a malacha and to a work that is prohibited on Shabbos. And number three is a very bothersome activity, which seems to be what we're talking about here. Something that's a tircha, very bothersome. So it's not that you're concerned that you're going to, because gathering fruit is not, what's it going to lead to? So it's not going to lead to you cutting fruit off the tree, but it's something that's a tircha. It's a bothersome. Tircha means he uses the word English bothersome, and that's not Shabbostic. It's called there's an expression called Shabbostic. It's not Shabbos. It's not in the spirit of Shabbos, and therefore don't do it. You want to pick it up and eat it, eat it. But to go again, there's certain you have to ask yourself if it really gets in the way, right? That or endangers people from walking around, then it's something different. We're talking about just like there's certain things that we don't do because it's like a weekday activity and it's bothersome. It's not in the spirit of Shabbos. Yes, Aaron.
If you take my mother and my son would be less bothered by doing something because he's younger than my mother. So how do you know how much, even though you use these three things? And what's the second thing? I didn't get to write it down, but you look at these three things, and it's going to be different for my son than my mother.
So okay, so excellent questions. The first two things. The first one was that it's like a work on Shabbos. The second one is it may lead to doing a work on Shabbos. So those have nothing to do with who's the person involved. But the third one is about what was the word he used in English? Tiresome, bothersome. So you're right, yeah. So the question is if the kind of the Shulchan Aruch is giving a blanket statement that gathering fruits from all over the place is bothersome for most people. So there's certain things that are going to be considered bothersome. The Torah is going to define it. It's nothing to do with youth. There's certain people that are bothered by small things, right? A dover cotton, even a small thing is annoying to them. They don't want to do anything. Take the plate off like one person will say, well, I'm not going to take my plate off the table on Shabbos because I don't like that, that's bothersome to me. So that, yeah, there's certain things that are what's called the norm. You can't say it's that, that to me to take or to sweep the floor is bothersome, or for me to take out to put that's, someone could use that for anything, right? I don't want to help with the kids. It's bothersome. So there's certain things that are basically normal things that normal people do, right? That we go after the rove, we go after the majority. There's certain things that you're right that
Rabbi, I got no audio with you.
Yeah,
Can
we
you hear
lost
me?
audio. I got it. I got you audio from Barbara, but I have no audio from Mendel.
Yeah, no, Rabbi, no audio.
No, no audio. Barbara comes through. Yeah, I thought it was me. I unplugged my headphones and plugged them back in, and then you started speaking. Barbara?
Yeah, I muted myself, but I'm
Yeah, I know.
unmuted.
I saw that, but I was just calling you to unmute. And Mendel now froze. No one froze, just Mendel. Mendy, I mean. Could you send him a text? Barbara, send him a text.
Yeah, I'll send him a text. Let me,
Oh, he deleted
he
me.
went up.
So he's
He went-
coming back.
Yeah.
You haven't asked any questions today.
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
I'm just listening. I'm just listening. A lot of it's, just retaining. Okay.
Hey guys, I'm back. I don't know.
Yeah.
When it's so early in the morning, no one's in the office. It's just annoying that they have such bad internet in the morning over here in the office.
Is
Okay,
this your office where you work?
we work, yeah. So, I mean, it's not my office private, but it's a public office. I mean, it's a WeWork office. I don't know why they have these jumps in the internet. It's just life. Okay, so
Okay.
we're
So
back.
just repeat the last
Okay,
minute.
so we were talking about was the level. If this happens again, please let me know or WhatsApp me. We were talking about was the effort. How do you define effort? So there's certain efforts that that what's called rove, the majority. The majority of people say this is the way it is, this is the way it is. You can't just decide that like I said before, taking the plate off your table is a problem for you. Number two is that there is things that are connected to age. For instance, like you said, let's say the example you've given, your mother versus your son. For your mother to do something may be more difficult than for your son to do something. So that's an excellent question. If we apply bothersome based on what a person could do, I think in those situations, surely you shouldn't do something that exhausts yourself on Shabbos if it's out of your age or sex or strength to do it, and it's not Shabbostic. So I guess, but to actually label specifics about that, I think each person wants, if it's out of what's called the norm, then, for instance, the Shulchan Aruch considers gathering fruit all over the place is bothersome for anyone. But there's certain things that would apply to specific people, and those specific people, it'd be okay to avoid doing those things. But let's see. So here he says, so you can't pick them up and put them in the basket, but you can eat them. Means pick up one, and if you see an apple, pick it up and eat it. So the Vilna Gaon holds that it is only permitted to eat them, but according to the Tosfos and the Rosh, which are actually sages before the Vilna Gaon. So it is permitted it is permitted to put the fruits into a garment, etc., but definitely not into a basket. So to do something small, the Vilna Gaon is very strict. You have to literally just pick it up and eat it. But the others hold that like kind of gathered one here, one there is okay. So let's see what he says is the issue of gathering. It's not just a tircha. He says, so gathering fruits together into a pile or heap is also a malacha called ma'amir. The Rambam or Zerua, Meiri, Yesh Omrim rule that it is prohibited even when done not in a place where they grow, where you're concerned you'll pick it up. Tosfos, Smag, Tur, these are all different authorities in the halacha, rule that is prohibited only in a place which they grow, because that's where one would gather. The Igle Tal rules that it is best to be machmer in both cases. The halacha of Uvdin Dechol, however, is merely concerns the actual gathering of the fruit, but does not deal with the piling or heaping of the fruit. So he means to say there's two things here. To pile it up, that's ma'amr. But here we're not talking about piling, we're just talking about gathering. So gathering is definitely not piling, but piling is a malacha. And he's not indicating either that piling that gathering would be uvdin the because maybe you come to pile. Maybe that's what he means as well. It seems like he's talking about the third level for uvdin the that it's bothersome. Okay, now we're getting into the complicated halal. Yes, Aaron.
Just to ask. So what I understand is if I have a farm and I'm gathering some up, or I have them in a basket already, I can take them back. But if they fall, You just told us what to do. Now, does that include if they fall in my house on the floor?
No, he's specifically talking about it, your house. He says, if you look at the opening line of law number 10 is fruit that has scattered in one place in the house or yard.
So I
Means literally,
shouldn't pick it up even at home.
again, everything has to be taken into context.
Right, I understand.
If you're gonna, let's give an example. So fruit is he gives an example for fruit because fruit there's a method of doing it. For instance, by okay, all these things have to be taken into what's called Shabbosdik, right? Uvdin
Right.
lachal. If a person, let's say, drops a pack of marbles on the floor, spreads all over your house, you can say, well, that's like fruit. It's very bothersome for me to get on my hands and knees and pick it up. But at the same time, it's not Shabbosdik to have your house full of marbles, and B, it's not safe, right? Someone could hurt themselves, or the kids could put them in their mouth, right? Everything has to be taken into the full picture. So if you're talking about fruits that fall in the way, that disrupts your Shabbos. So disrupting your Shabbos is also not good, right? We're talking about in a situation where it won't disrupt your Shabbos. For instance, about the question of taking off the table in the final meal, right? Or some people say, well, we don't take off the table in the final meal. We kind of limit how we organize after the final meal because Shabbos is already over, and you're not supposed to prepare your house for Motzei Shabbos for a Saturday night. But some people are don't like to have their house in an unkept way, and it actually disturbs their Oneg Shabbos, their joy of Shabbos, when they see the house dirty. So there's different ways. People stock it, people cover it. My mother always puts like a towel over it. Like there's ways to keep Shabbos in the spirit of Shabbos, but to say that I'm going to leave my house a pigsty because I don't want to prepare for Saturday night, even in the weekday you wouldn't leave your house for 10 minutes to look like that. And then of course there's a security issue, a safety issue. So again, these things, if by mistake you drop a basket of apples all over the place, and it's a safety issue, or mamish disrupts your Oneg Shabbos, we're talking about it in a way that it doesn't disrupt, and the focus is just that you want to pick it up, and if it's bothersome, just leave it. All right.
So if I just want to pick it up to eat it, it's okay.
We said picking it up to eat is for sure not a problem. But if you wanna just pick it up that in a way that's just to organize it, but doesn't disrupt your comfort or your Oneg Shabbos. Again, if a person drops marbles on the floor, it's a safety issue. These are things again, and although it's bothersome, but it's bothersome. There's certain things that are bothersome that you would have to do on Shabbos as well, right?
Right.
Okay, so there's like that, and then that happens. A lot of times you have things. Anytime you have to sweep the floor, it's bothersome, but you have to do it, right? Okay, now the question we come into the question of eating peas and other seeded or covered seeds of fruits like peas or nuts on the Shabbos. He says kitnios. Like peas, v'kadoyim shem biklipasan, they're still in their shells. Shekoirin sharbitin or shoitin, okay, which are called sharvitin. Im haklipas adayin lachos uruyis gamkin lachila. Sometimes you have, let's say, right, you have peas that you could eat the shell as well, right? They haven't dried out yet, so you don't need to you don't have to you're not looking to get rid of the shell. In theory, you can eat the shell, but you're choosing to not eat the shell, right? So he says im haklipis adayin lachais uruyes means they can be also eaten. Mutter lefachsan ulakachs memasakitnias. You could open them up and take out the peas themselves. Why? Because then it's kahavir mafrid oichel mi. The question over here is where we're getting to. The issue is boirer. You're separating good from bad. So sunflower seeds or other seeds that are not, the shells are not edible. But in Chabad, the Alter Rebbe is very careful not to eat seeded seeds on Shabbos. Sephardim have the minhag, they do eat seeds on Shabbos. So it's the big business. The whole business of the seeds, all those petzuchet, all the seeded stores around Eretz Yisrael is mainly they're for Shabbos. But in Chabad, we don't eat seed. I mean, you could eat sunflower seeds that have been taken out of their shells before Shabbos. So here he says if the shell itself can be eaten like in a pea, So then it's called, you're taking ochel mi ofa. You're separating food from food. It means the first food could be eaten and the second food could be eaten. Aval, however, if im haklipos nisyapshu, if the shells have dried, ve'einin ruis oil lachila, no longer can be eaten, right? They're not edible, and you have to disregard them as psilas. Psilas means something that you throw away, you disregard. V'chein yesh lizar, so then it's forbidden. V'chein yesh lizar, and also one should be cautious. V'lahaitzias ha'goizim mitoich ha'klipa hayiruka shelahen v'chein ha'sumsumim mitoich ha'klipa. And he says similarly, one must be careful not to remove nut kernels from their soft green outer shell. We'll see in a second the footnotes why, and sesame seeds from their shells. Okay, let's first see the footnotes on this, and I think I may have some stuff that I want to bring up for the other customs. Okay, we have or the other people's halachas. So here we're talking about the first thing is that it's the peas that the shells themselves are still edible. So to separate ochel from ochel is permitted. Separate food from food is okay, but separating food from psolas is not. So let's see the footnote on that. Footnote number 42 is when the peel is not edible, you are not allowed to remove the peas from the pod from their pods, for then it is prohibited because of the malacha of mifarik, extracting, which is a tulda, an offshoot malacha of dush, which is also when they would separate the wheat, take it off its shell, threshing, see beer halacha. So if it's so so mifarik is not allowed on Shabbos, and if the pea is dry, it's mifarik. Footnote number 43. So he says if the pods have become dry, no longer edible, it's forbidden to remove the peas from them. See, this is mefarik, like you said before. See footnote number 42. Footnote number 43 is why can't we take the nuts? The green shell is the one that covers the very hard. The green shell is the one that covers the very hard shell. So because you have to get past the hard shell, so you shouldn't be eating it on the Shabbos. I believe.
But almonds have a green shell, and if you get it raw, you can eat the green shell. Sephardics eat it.
Oh, hold on a
I
second.
don't like it, but they eat it.
Coffee we did, Klirisha we did.
Did
Okay, let's
you
see
hear
here.
what I said?
Yeah. I see what you're saying. We said the walnuts, right?
No, the almonds, the raw almonds.
Soft almonds before they've been dried.
Right.
So you're saying certain Sephardim do eat them.
My wife's family eats them. They think they're delicious. I think they're not. But
Okay, that's it. That's
so but my question is this: um, when I go over to my parents' house, my parents-in-law, they have all kinds of nuts. Am I, as an Ashkenaz, allowed to open them because I'm at their house, or should I refrain from it?
if it's because you don't like them.
No. I'm just saying in general. I love all kinds of nuts that you have to peel, like sesame seeds. I'm not sesame seeds because they're already peeled. Like sunflower seeds. They might put out sunflower seeds, whatever. They pistachios. They taste better in the shell when you peel them than the ones that are pre-peeled. But my point is that they put them out. So I, as an Ashkenaz, should refrain, or can I do it in their house?
No, no such thing. If you have a minhag, if your halacha is a certain way, you don't do it, and even if
I
it's
mean, I didn't know I couldn't do it
yeah.
until you just told me. So
So this means the Alter Rebbe. He says like let's see the notes over here. Rubbing and peeling shells, stalks, pods from the nuts, seeds, beans on Shabbos. He said like this. In these laws, there are various discrepancies between the ruling of the Shulchan Aruch and that of the Siddur, meaning of the Alter Rebbe we're talking about, of Chabad. Although both rulings have been brought below, it is incumbent upon the reader to read the summary to know how we practically rule, taking into account all the rulings of the Siddur, which is the final say in the matter. When he means to say the Siddur in the Shulchan Aruch, is the Alter Rebbe has the laws of Shabbos that he wrote in the Shulchan Aruch and actually called in the Jewish law, and he has laws that he brings down on Shabbos and other things that he brings down in the Siddur. By Chasidim, by Chabad, the final word is what it says in the Siddur. So when it comes to the seeds and beans and peas, there seems to be a discrepancy in the ruling. So we go with what it says in the Siddur. First opinion is it's allowed to do it with an irregularity. One may not extract seeds from the stalks in the same method used during the week, which is to rub the stalks within the palm of one's hand, in order so the seed falls out from it. Rather, one must rub them with a slight irregularity using the tips of his fingers. It means you do a shinui. It's called shinui. Now, although the reason this is allowed, now, although by doing so, he or she separates the seeds from the stalks with the hand, and one who separates seeds from the stalks with his hand is liable for the transgression, an offshoot of the threshing prohibition, which we spoke about before, which is done using a vessel, and here using your hand, as we'll explain in chapter 305. Nevertheless, since he is separating it irregularly in a not regular way, in order to eat it right away, it is permitted. It was not decreed against doing so due to that one may come to separate the seeds as irregularity done as regularly done, being that even one who separates them in the usual method is only considered to be doing so irregularly, being that it does not take the food and actually remove it from with his hands from the stalks. Okay, this is not exactly what we're talking about over here. Let's see
But
about
what
this.
about one who, okay, sunflower seeds, even if it's not Shabbat or holiday, I use my teeth. So what I do the same on Shabbos.
Yeah, but we use it. We use our teeth all the time. See the conclusion over here. Let's just do the summary. I'm not going to get into the details of the law. Let's just do the summary so we just know the bottom line over here. Rubbing off the pods and stalks of grains and ligaments. If the pods are inedible, like we said before, then it's completely forbidden to rub them off due to the threshing prohibition, like we said in the Kitzur. Even if they were cooked and thus the ligament have already separated within the pod, if the pods are edible, then a meticulous person should avoid eating them even in such a case. So unlike the Shulchan Aruch, where if you could eat the pods, it's better not to. Now, what about peeling off the pods of ligaments, both pods that are inedible? It is forbidden due to mifarik, like we learned in the Shulchan Aruch, according to all, even if the beans were separated from the pods from before the Shabbos. So it's you can't, it's been separated, but you have to take it out. Pods that are edible, the custom is that to be lenient, to peel off the pods, although a meticulous person should avoid eating them even in such a case. Nevertheless, if the beans have detached from their pods, then seemingly, according to all, it may be lenient. Peeling off a thin peel of nuts, it could be what you're talking about, ligaments or grains, hold on, Barbara, does not contain any mepharic prohibition because it's just a thin one, although contains the separating restrictions and thus may only be peeled directly prior to the meal. Yes, Barbara.
So my question is like, it says, even if the pods, if you shelled peas, let's say I shelled peas, I'm not going to eat the pods, but I shell them before Shabbat. I couldn't eat those peas on Shabbat.
Um,
Because there are some beans that you have to shell out of the pod that you can't eat the pod. So even if you did that before Shabbat, you still couldn't eat them?
it seems like what he's talking about, they're still in the pods, but they've been taken. If let's say you open up a pea, if I understand him correctly here, if you open up the pea, it's actually connected to the peel, right? And you have to pull it out. So
Yeah,
I think he's talking about you disconnected it from the peel, but it's still in the peel. I can't see there's any prohibition. If you took
okay.
a
What
bowl.
about edamame?
Hold on,
Those things.
hold on, Aaron. If you took the peas out of the peels before Shabbos and there's no connection to the peel at all, the peel's been thrown out in the garbage before Shabbos, that we can't be talking about such a situation. So we have to be talking about it's still with the peel, but it's been disconnected from the peel. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah, I see what you're
But
saying.
if you take the peel and throw it in the garbage, and it's now separated in a bowl, we're not talking about that. What do you say, Aaron?
Okay.
edamame, which is the thing that turns into tofu. You can eat them, but you have to take the peel off. They're in a pod,
Is
like
I know I'm not familiar with how that works. Is it a thin peel?
it's kind of like it's a little thicker than the Chinese peas that you're talking about that you can take them out.
I would have to check on that. Send a note on the chat. I'll look into it.
Okay.
All right, let's see. I wanted to get to the nuts and shells. Nuts with shells. Avoid eating nuts, seeds on Shabbos. It is proper to avoid eating them unless they have been shelled before Shabbos, like taken out of their shells before Shabbos, and are thus no longer mixed with their shells. In the event that one eats nuts with shells on Shabbos, the following are the laws involved in removing the shells. Okay, so if better not, our custom is not to eat them at all unless, let's say, the sunflower seeds, to take sunflower seeds that are been disconnected. But if you eat them with a shell or what have you, so he's gonna give the laws here. Rubbing off the upper green shell, it is forbidden to be done even with the tips of one's fingers due to the thrusting prohibition, and rather one must crack it open. Peeling off the upper green shell is forbidden due to the mefarik prohibition. Peeling off the thin peel of nuts, ligaments, and grains, like peanuts have a little peel, does not contain any mefarik prohibition, although contains all the separating restrictions and thus may only be peeled directly prior to the meal. So I just want to make a conclusion. Again, he basically doesn't say over here. He says one should, unless they've been shelled before Shabbos and that's no longer mixed with the shells, in the event that one eats nuts with the shells, let's say you just eat the sunflower seeds with the shells, you can't do that. I do that sometimes, not on Shabbos. On Shabbos, the following are the laws involved in removing its shell. So can't remove it regularly. Now, peanuts, for instance, let's say peanuts, right? Everyone has, even if you buy peanuts that are out of the shell, they have that thin kind of covering on
But you
top.
can eat it.
So yeah, but let's say you don't want to, let's say you want to separate it. So he goes to separate it and eat it right away. That's not a problem. But if let's say you want to prepare for tomorrow's salad, right? Or later salad. So then it becomes a problem of ochel and psolas. Means if you just there's a difference when you prepare something to eat right away and when you prepare something as a preparation for a later point. So to take off the thin shell, the thin shell, or whatever you want to call it, peel, and just to put it away as is, that's a problem. Whereas just the peel, for instance, to peel an apple on Shabbos is an orange on Shabbos, okay, because you peel it and eat it. But to peel something and put it away, peeled, that's separating food from solas. All right, we have to do a little more detail about this,
But
about the laws of of,
separating.
of separating, but
But my
this is the basics so far.
my question is, okay, so you buy a box of mixed nuts, all of them are shelled, but one nut you don't like out of all the others. How do you eat them?
Okay, that's called ochel mi ochel. That's food from food. If it's edible food, if it's regular food, you particularly don't like it, it's different. But even then, you have to be careful how you do it, not to do it in a way of like obvious borer, like let's say jelly beans, right? People don't like the black jelly bean, so you have to be. It's not so simple how to do it, but that's a difference. Ochel from ochel is food from food is different than food from, like, even the peel of the peanut is different than yeah, like you said. Some people just eat that little peel on the peanut. Some people don't mind it at all. Some people do mind it. I remember when I came to Kollel in the old city of Yerushalayim. So my Rosh Kollel, then Rabbi Deitch was saying that I guess peanuts is one of the things people put out in bowls, at a gathering or a simcha or a farbrengen. So he says you have to be very careful when you eat peanuts because it's so light. It's so light. It's such a light peel that sometimes you pick it up and you put it in your mouth and you breathe in and you could choke on it. I remember they were talking about the peels then, but that was more of a health of a risk issue versus a Shabbos issue. All right, any other questions before we conclude tonight's class? I mean, we didn't cover as much ground as I would like, and I want to get more into the details because I know definitely Sephardim do eat peanuts or shells and Shabbos,
Tons. They put
and
fruit and
uh,
nuts
and
out.
and they do and they don't eat the shells. They spit out the shells. There's definitely a shinoi that they do, but so it's not done regularly. Let's say crushing it before, but Definitely, Chabad is very careful, whereas it seems like others are less careful when they're done in a shinoi. Yes, Barbara.
I was just thinking of snap sugar peas, which I like to eat. I don't know if you know what those are,
No.
but you can eat them in the pod. They're very sweet and they're peas, but they have this little end which I would always snap off before I would eat it because
I mean, the flat ones, right?
they're
Yeah.
kind of flat. They can be a little plump, but can you do that on Shabbat where you can take those off, snap those off?
I would assume that the snapping off of that part to be done right before you eat is different than as it be. I think so. Would be. I think so. I have to check because that could be. It's not really a light shell. It's more of a. I know you. If I know what you're talking about, it's that kind of. It has a stem at the end of it.
Yeah, like just a little stem. Yeah.
I have to check on the stem issue. But we all the time, we if you know, a lot of people will make a salad and cut off the ends of the cucumbers and not eat it because they don't like to eat the ends of a vegetable. Again, there's a difference when you're preparing food to eat right away or within a normal amount of time than if you're just putting away food. So if you were to prepare a bowl of that and put it in the fridge or away, that's different. That'd be a
But what
problem.
if you, with my mother-in-law, so she'll put out a bowl of nuts and fruits. So the nuts have to be and seeds. They need to be taken out of the shell. And she might have it sit there for an hour before we even touch it.
No, no, no. Again, again, Chabad,
You take care of it by not eating it.
we don't eat it. But I'm saying if you're again to know to sit there and crack open sunflower seeds and separate that for sure you cannot do on Shabbos. If you're gonna pop it in your mouth and kind of as you're
That's
eating
how
it,
they do it.
they don't prepare it and put it in a bowl.
No, they put it in a bowl and then they just stick it, and then whenever they're hungry, they'll stick it in their mouth.
That's different. If for those who permit it, that's different. Yes.
But find out if I'm so you I never knew this law until you mentioned it right now in class.
Okay.
So I just followed my Sephardic parents-in-law because I didn't know I couldn't do it as a Ashkenaz. So am I required not to do it at their house or
Let me get some more let me get some more information on this and we'll pick either I'll post it or we'll talk about it more. I'll bring it up for next class in the beginning.
okay? Thank you.
Yes, Rebecca.
I had to leave in the middle for a family thing, so I don't know if you talked about this, but did you talk about peeling like a fruit like an orange or a banana right before you eat it, if that's
Yes,
okay?
that's okay, but that's it. There's no prohibition against eating peeling oranges on Shabbos. But again, to prepare in a way that's there's the ochel from the non-ochel, the food from non-food, when like a dry shell, and there's a question of edible or not edible, and what level of it not being edible, like an orange peel or a apple peel or a cucumber peel. There's different, a peel of a certain peels may not be pleasant to eat, but they can be eaten. Certain things cannot be eaten. There's a difference. But to prepare, but to eat the oranges, the oranges is not is um I believe that's not a problem.
But you could eat it because people cook it and make it a candy. You just can't eat the white
Yeah, yeah,
thing
yeah,
under
yeah,
it.
yeah. Or some people could eat them straight up. There's a lot of good vitamins in certain peels.
Um, Wait, so can I just ask, so let's say you peel an orange, right? So there's a little bit of the white stuff, like from the inside of the peel, a little bit still stays on the orange, on the pieces
Oh.
of orange, right?
That would be like the little peel on the peanut.
Peanut. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is like let's say you don't like to eat that. Like do you have to like eat it anyway and then like spit it
No,
out
no,
or
no,
can you
no, no,
peel
no,
it
no.
off?
You could peel that off as long as you're doing it right away. Like if you're in middle of eating the orange, is
Okay.
different than if you were to prepare it and put it into the fridge.
Okay.
Okay.
Someone told me, see if this is correct or not. So you have a bowl of stuff that you can eat. Don't worry about peeling or any of that. And some of the stuff you like and some of the stuff you don't. So they said, if in your mind you're taking the good and you're eating it, then it's okay. But if you're removing the bad and then eating the good, that's not okay.
Say that again?
Okay, you have a bowl of stuff to eat right away. You're going to eat it. Some of the stuff you like and some you don't. If
Mhm.
you take the good stuff you like and eat it right away, okay, that's permissible. But if you take the bad stuff out first, then that's not permissible.
Yeah. But okay, that's in the laws of Borer. That's for instance, leaving bad stuff versus. But here we're not talking about that and peeling. We're not talking
Okay.
about that issue. We're talking about that's for instance, if you let's say this happens sometimes, if a fly were to fall into your cup, you can't pull the fly out of the cup, but you could kind of, with some liquids that so you're spilling out food itself is also it's not really Borer.
Okay, but if the fly flew in, could I just throw the whole thing away? Because I wouldn't touch it.
That's a question about tashkis. That's another question of throwing out usable foods. If it's something you wouldn't touch because of health issues, I mean, I don't think a regular fly, if you take it out, is going to be too harmful. But if something that you're very cautious about, so
I'm not caught. It just looks disgusting to me. I don't want to take a chance,
okay.
but I couldn't throw it away.
When to spill out to waste food, yeah, that goes to the question that will study in the laws of Baltashkas.
Okay, but you also brought up the fly, so I'll just say what my
I,
son
I'm just
says.
talking about in the case where you're okay with drinking the wine, just not okay.
Right, but I'm telling you what my son said. You can't do anything to to harm insects in your house unless they're dangerous and will hurt you and make you sick. So, like, we'll find like whatever bug it bothers me to be in the house. But he'll say you can pick it up and you can throw it out at the balcony, but don't smush it, kill it.
Oh yeah. That there's that's a concept. Yeah, to kill an animal for the sake of killing it when you have a way to just shoo it out of the house is obviously not the same thing. But if it's
But
too
he said
common,
on Shabbos, you can't do it. If it
no,
wasn't Shabbos,
Shabbos is not even during the week. It's better to not kill an animal if you could just get it out, let it out the window. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Laila Tov. I'll try to get some more information about the seeds for next week.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Rabbi.
you.